Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
A very good morning to you. You're watching Newsline this morning with me. I'm Satrang Hapuarachi. Once again, before I introduce our guest to you this morning, a reminder to you about the Sirasa John Keels Vesak Zone happening at the environs of the head office of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited here in Braybrook Street, Union Place, Colombo 2. If you were here with us yesterday, you could have seen the pandals that have been put up with the support of the Sri Lanka Navy and the police, the dancella that is which is being held here in Union Place, and especially the relics of the Sarvakshana Arahat Theras which have been brought down from Tissa Maharama and the Nelligala Rajamaha Viharaya. Coincidentally, this is one of the only times the relics at the Tissa Maharama Sadagiri Saya have been brought down or moved from the location in Tissa Maharama, which was brought here on a ship with the support of the Sri Lanka Navy. And the Sirasa John Keels Vesak Zone will be open for the general public today as well, and we will have it tomorrow as well. However, the Sri Lanka Navy is holding a special perahara around the Capital Maharaja head office here in Braybrook Place, which will be only done this evening. So if you want to look at this and witness this spectacle, you can be here this evening. These are visuals from the last evening, the perahara which was held last evening in line with the Sirasa John Keels Vesak Zone. With all those good things happening in the evening, let me introduce our guest this morning, a person I love talking to when it comes to the topic that we are in discussion, the Trincomalee area, the Trincomalee oil tank farm, and the relationship Sri Lanka has with India in this regard. Good morning to you, Dr. Samarajee.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us this morning, even on the day after the Vesak Poya day. Let me very quickly, before we move into the topic that we had in mind, ask you a question about the political situation. This is a question that I have been having for a while. You know, when there are issues within a team, issues within a certain team, let's take any sports team, let's take the national cricket team, we say deal your problems behind closed doors or in a locker room, because they are a sports team at the end of the day, and their unity is important. But when it comes to a political party, if they are having issues within, let's take any party for example, if they are having an issue, my question is, should the people be aware? Because at the end of the day, this is not the national cricket team or the national rugby team or national volleyball team. This is the political representatives that the people have appointed. Do the people have a right to know if there is a party turmoil or a turmoil within the party?
Yeah. Generally, you know, there are these very disciplined parties, and then there are these sort of agglomerations. And generally speaking, in Sri Lanka, I guess the JVP or something would be one of these cadre-based disciplined parties, and there you are unlikely to see the differences being very public. But in the other parties, where, you know, all you need is to fill up some form and give 100 rupees or something to become a member, probably it can't be avoided that dissension and debate comes out into the open. And whether it's a good thing or not, I don't know, but people know about these things. Yeah,
right. Enough of that. We'll get to our topic. The Trincomalee oil tank farm. Okay. Let me first of all ask you. This is not. See, when it comes to Sri Lankans, we have this sense of ownership with regard to these old things that we have in our country. Be it something, we have this feeling where we think the kings have made it. But when it comes to the Trincomalee oil tank farm, this is not made by the kings. This is made by the British. So if we are actually selling this out or giving this out on a lease basis, there is nothing wrong with it, is there?
Well, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that, because clearly it's the British who made it. They made it after the fall of Singapore and the loss of the entire, Malaya, Myanmar, all these places where the British were there, and they were very surprisingly, and very quickly they were defeated by the Japanese. So the Eastern Fleet was supposed to be headquartered in Trincomalee. For that, they built these enormous tanks. 101 tanks were built. However, most of the tanks were never used.
Right.
Because within 6 months, the senior people in the British Navy decided that this was too dangerous, and they moved the fleet to Addu Atoll in the Maldives. Luckily, because I think within a week or so of that move, the Japanese bombed the place. And actually then it became not 101 but 100 tanks.
Yes.
The Eastern Fleet never came back.
Yes.
They went over to Africa. They were based near Mombasa. So these tanks were actually never used, right, for their intended purpose.
Yes.
It is said that to refurbish one of these tanks, it will take about $1 million US. So there are two things we need to think about this thing. One is that for 70 plus years they have not been used. We are talking about the majority of the tanks.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5, between 4 and 10 have been used at various times, the lower tanks. The rest of them have been just in the jungle, unused, and they cannot be used without additional investment. And then the second point is that the question of what they are to be used for has not been answered, because in a way the fact that they were sitting there in the jungle for 70 plus years is testimony to the fact that people couldn't figure out what to do with it. Yes. So you'd either have a huge amount of naval traffic in Trincomalee, which is not the case, which one would have to work on working up. But even then it wouldn't be adequate, because this was for the great whatever Eastern Fleet of the British Empire when it was at its peak. So nobody is going to be using oil at that scale. So then you'd have to think about a business case where perhaps to take advantage of arbitrage opportunities between future prices and current prices and so on, people would store oil here and then they would release it to the market at various points, which is again a very capital intensive activity.
Yes.
So whether the business case for that is there, I'm not going to say. I'm saying it's just a difficult business case. So business case, investment. Those are the things we need to think about, rather than this old, tired and actually counterproductive metaphor of the family silver.
Yes.
The family silver can be used for something. Definitely. This is not even something that can be used.
So if as you very rightly mentioned, if this was a utopia, all well situation, and these oil tank farms were, the upper farm and the lower farm was just lying there and everything was perfect, Sri Lanka would still know what to do with it, because we had it for 70 years if we wanted to do something with it.
Yeah, we've had it for 70 years. So people have seen the potential, but there is something called the politics of sort of denial at operation here.
Right.
So in 1977, Mr. Jayajardhana's government, there was an attempt to develop it along with an American company. And then the Indian government said, no, we don't like that. We don't like an American military related entity coming here. So politics of denial begins again, right? The Japanese denied its use to the British. Now we were trying to develop it with the Americans, and the Indian government wasn't happy about it. 1987, the Indo-Lanka Accord. Yes. It's written in there. No military-related activities can take place in Trincomalee to the detriment of or without the concurrence of India. Specific mention is made of the oil tanks. Right. In the side letter. Right. And that says that they will be developed as part of a joint venture. Still nothing happens. Yes. 2003. The tanks are given to IOC, which is a government-owned Indian oil company, right? Nothing much happens, even then. So this issue of seeing the potential but not being able to do anything with it just continues.
What is India trying to do with the oil tank farm now? Are they trying to do anything?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. So basically, at least we are getting a bit more systematic about the plan now. Instead of giving the whole thing over to Lanka IOC and they not using it.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, I can understand they're not using it.
Yeah.
2003 to 2009, you can understand there was more going on. There was heavy artillery in Sampur at the gateway to Trincomalee. No aircraft are taking off from the airfield,
Yes.
even though it's our airfield, because we are worried about our planes being pulled down. I mean, that's not the ideal environment for investment.
Yes.
So now, 7 years, 8 years after the war, maybe the environment is right.
Right.
The Bay of Bengal is booming.
Yes.
6 of the fastest growing economies, of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are around the Bay of Bengal. A lot of activities are going on. The potential now, I think, is becoming clearer.
Yes.
So if the Bay of Bengal is developing, if Trincomalee is going to become an industrial zone, which is eastward facing, serving Myanmar, Thailand, Bangladesh, which has a much faster growth rate than Sri Lanka.
Yes.
I suppose there is a business case emerging. But we'll have to do this in stages. I don't think anybody is going to be able to use not 101 now. Now it's about 99 tanks.
Yeah. But in the IOC already owns several of it.
They can use some part of them. Yeah, they can use those. But clearly there's going to be 77 that will be developed. That's where the investment is required. That will be developed as a joint venture. Now, a lot of people like joint ventures. But what I ask about joint ventures is, does the Petroleum Corporation or the storage terminals part of the Petroleum Corporation, which is a different unit within the organization, which has about 3,000 employees, does it have the resources and the expertise to actually actively participate in a joint venture? We know that IOC is a massive company that is actually one of the Navaratna companies. They have these sort of crown jewels of state-owned companies. And IOC is actually a profitable, well-run, commercial type organization. CPETCO, on the other hand, is not a well-run, commercially viable company. So do they have the ability to actually actively participate in a joint venture? This is one of the concerns that anybody who is compelled to go into a joint venture with Sri Lankan government entities is asking, are you really going to put money into it?
Because we are not doing that very well.
No, the question is, do we have the money?
Yes.
So we could then say, okay, we can always take loans. But you take loans to enter into risky joint ventures means that you also might lose your shirt.
That's true. Internationally, when it comes to this particular location that we're talking about, as you said, USA also had a interest in this area back in the day. But right now, when we are speaking, the US also once again wants to do something in the area because they want to have more cooperation in the Bay of Bengal, the Indian Ocean region. Japan is interested. Japan and India are having certain projects that are being carried out in the region. Do you think India is the only option that we can look into, or are we, in a way, are we limiting ourselves to India because of the relationship we have? What is happening there?
Well, given the agreements that we have signed and our geographical location, we have to work with India regarding Trincomalee in particular. I think the ramifications of violating the 1987 agreement, whether we like it or not, are somewhat serious.
Yeah.
However, India and Japan seem to be working very closely together on many issues.
Yeah.
So it's likely that Trincomalee, when developed, will have both Japanese and Indian involvement. Americans, I haven't heard any news about them being interested in coming here. And I don't think there's actually a case for the... But again, the issue is this: you have to separate the military activities from the commercial. This is commercial. Right?
And your point is that this area should be a commercial area, and because See, we cannot stop the country whichever goes into a partnership with the Sri Lankan government, making it, if India decides to make it a military project, if India decides
Why can't we?
We can't.
That's called national sovereignty. I mean, we are including a clause for Hambantota saying no military activities in Hambantota. Why can't? When I say military activities, we are talking about places like Djibouti, right? I don't know whether you're aware that this little country called Djibouti,
Yes.
which is sort of at the head of the Red Sea, Suez Canal area, now has got military bases for both the Americans and the Chinese.
Right.
Pretty much within shouting distance.
Right.
Right? That's military. Right? What you have in Diogo Garcia is military. When a ship comes in for refueling, that's not...
That is commercial.
Even if the ship is a military vessel, they can come and refuel. That is generally under the law of the sea.
Yeah.
That is allowed in all ports.
Yeah.
Right? Prior notification, all that kind of stuff can be done, but that's not a military use per se. But if you're stationing troops there, if you're stationing communication equipment, that's military.
Yes.
My understanding is that nobody is considering Sri Lanka as a military base, and I hope nobody will, and I hope we don't allow. There's
Sri Lanka
no really
will have
reason.
that reason to say no, we are not allowing this.
Now there is the lease in Diogo Garcia. If that ends and somehow Diogo Garcia has to be closed down, there will be a need for some
new
substitute
place.
for the American troops if they are going continuing kind of Asian engagements. But that is in a way precluded by our location and by our relationship with India.
Right. Once again, with regard to the Trincomalee Bay, we see the Prime Minister also wanting to develop a partnership between the 5 states and Sri Lanka as well. Now we told that India is trying to put up a new
5
port.
states is
The Telangana, the southern states
yes,
of India, and Sri Lanka also. The Prime Minister was very vocal about putting up a partnership with these areas. Now, what does this mean to the Colombo port? If they, is there an impact with the Trincomalee Bay being developed into a better place and the Colombo port?
Well, Colombo is sort of the jewel in the crown. It's one part of our infrastructure that is working, that is efficient. I mean, efficient compared to other ports in South Asia, not compared to Singapore and various other places. It could be more efficient. But you see, ports have this, what we call network economies, positive externalities. A successful port, particularly a transshipment port, will attract more business, will attract more feeder ships. The feeder ships will attract more big ships, and so on. It's kind of self-reinforced.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very difficult, even if somebody tries to harm Colombo, right? I mean, you'll have to really work at it to destroy the value of the Colombo port.
If India puts up another port in their west coast, I'm told by my producer that there are plans ongoing. India is looking at building or constructing a port in their west coast.
West or east?
West coast, I'm told. But
okay, India has got a overall project called Sagarmala, right? So under Sagarmala, they are building a whole series of ports, and the one that is of greatest concern to us is right at the tip near Kanyakumari.
Right.
That they are talking about. In some of the writing on that, they are even saying we don't have to pay $100 per box to Colombo. It's mentioned.
Right.
So you can see they are trying to create a competitor. Whether they will succeed or not, I think we go back to that question of sort of the natural economies of successful transshipment ports. The Indian East Coast, on the other hand, right, the East Coast, there's a port in Visakhapatnam. There's some commercial development, a commercial port being developed. That one we should worry about.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't think we should worry about, because the whole point is, if the region is growing at above 7%. We should ride with it, because if you don't, I mean, this is not a case of a sort of a zero-sum game. If they are growing and we are growing, we can grow together. Because the volumes, this expanding pie situation rather than a fixed pie. If you look at the overall situation with the Indian East Coast, very weak, very few ports, airports, the whole thing. And I've looked at the growth rates of the Indian states, and for example Andhra, Orissa or Odisha, they don't have very good growth rates right now. They are sort of laggard states. But we hope that with people like with Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu, who's a very dynamic personality, and the building of the new port, the new capital of Amarvati, that Andhra will take off. So as they take off, who's positioned to handle their traffic? Colombo, right? Trincomalee is not seen as a container port per se, right? Because containers logically come to Colombo. Today it's a break-bulk port, right? Fuel, things that are not in boxes. Now, if we are to develop a container port, some container facility there, which will be necessary if we are going to develop the industrial zone, we'll have to improve the connectivity between Colombo and Trincomalee.
I think the government is already working on that as well. You spoke about the importance of the Trincomalee region at the Trincomalee consultations, and I remember you mentioning something about the connectivity being increased by the government. Is there a plan of the government?
Surbana Jurong is doing the master plan. The highways are being planned, Dambulla and then beyond Dambulla. So you'd have to do that, because if you really look at it now today, pretty much all the traffic goes on the Kantale Bund. That's not optimal situation, right? Because there's only so much, that's almost a choke point. So what you need is, you need more development of the rail line in particular, right? So you need to have these two connected. There's a lot of this kind of activity going on throughout the world, where they are trying to connect these things, the metaphor of a dry canal, something that is very frictionless and seamless, smooth connectivity between two ports. So if you do that, then you could have a situation where instead of ships having to come round Sri Lanka, and it's a small island, but it's still a bit of a time and a bit of expense, then they will come to Trincomalee from the eastern side, and then they will be shipped down to Colombo if they're going, if they want to have access to the hub and the big ships that will continue to come to Colombo.
With regard to, now I want to basically zoom out a bit and look at this whole Sri Lanka as a whole. We saw various infrastructure projects being carried out by the previous government, like the Mattala airport. Do you think this government, now the infrastructure development seems to be happening, but seems to be happening at a slower scale than what we saw before in the previous government, but do you think, like the Trincomalee oil tank farm, this government should focus on other key areas as well? Do you know of certain things that the government could be doing at the moment?
Well, you see, one likes speed, but say for example in Colombo, what was going on under the previous government was that we had master plan, we had lots of things planned out, and they were being implemented in Colombo, which was according to a plan. When you look at what is going on in the Hambantota district, there didn't seem to be much of a plan, and the feasibility study, for example, for Mattala had cost, I believe, I understand, 1 million Sri Lanka rupees, which is almost like nothing. You don't do serious feasibility studies for 1 million rupees, right? So the question is, you need a little bit of time to do feasibility studies and a master plan, which is going on in Trincomalee, and that's a good thing. So the issue is that we shouldn't, we have to make Hambantota work, obviously. I'm not at all in favor of people who sort of keep scoffing at the investments made in Hambantota. You have to make it work. All that money has been spent, and you can't walk away from it.
Yeah.
It's a different question if the money had not been spent.
Yeah.
Right? But the money has been spent, you have to develop it. So if that is the case, some planning is necessary. So obviously, if I had a choice, I would actually prefer to develop Trincomalee.
Right.
And then, of course, there is the whole question of Jaffna.
Right.
Palali Airport. You know, it's a globally connected community there, with pretty much every family having relatives abroad. Why is it that they have to come to Colombo and then take the train, even though the train is wonderful? I was on the train recently, 6 hours, you can get there more or less seamlessly. But why not develop Palali as well?
Right.
As perhaps as an international airport.
PPPs, private-public partnerships, what about it? Do you think that's the right way to go?
It's a good idea, but you really need to invest in the documentation, in making sure you get it right. One of our most successful PPPs is the South Asia Gateway Terminal, which is one of the Colombo terminals. And I'm told that the legal documentation for that was 1,500 pages long. So, you know, lawyers go for, good commercial lawyers, go for about, when I was working with these guys, they were paying about $700 an hour for one of these top-class lawyers, right? So you're talking about significant investment having to be made
on the legal documents.
But if you don't get the legal material right, if you don't get the nuts and bolts of a PPP, because remember, an infrastructure project goes on for a long time, 15 years, 30 years, etc. Nobody can predict the future. There's a lot of uncertainty and risk involved. So how you deal with that is through legal documentation. Now, legal documentation has to be written very, very carefully. You have to have good negotiators. So it's not a mantra. PPPs are not a mantra. Just say, oh, PPPs are good, let's do PPPs.
That's not the way.
PPPs are good. In fact, we have no alternative but to do PPPs. But we have to be very careful about them, because if you don't do it right, you could have confusion and court cases and all kinds of difficulties in the next 15-20 years. Since
we are coming to the end of the show, I want to ask you, this miscommunication from the part of the government with regard to the infrastructure projects that are being carried out, with regard to other projects that are being carried out, with regard to even holding the May Day, even coming down to simple things like that, political reasons. But is there still this miscommunication that we've been talking about for the past almost 2 years? Yeah, I would say, for example, particularly I contrast it with Mr. Modi, who's here or is coming on the way. You know, there's a very, very effective communication machinery running around him. I mean, what are we doing wrong then?
We are not communicating.
We are not communicating at all.
Right. We are not communicating, and to a certain extent, our people and the media, we are all trapped in kind of old and counterproductive metaphors. The metaphor of family silver, for example. The whole idea, you know, that there are these assets and we have to hold on to them. But the whole point is, in a commercial setting, you don't think about ownership. You don't. That's the past. You think about ownership in terms of the opportunity to invest, take risks, and make money, right? So that's a future orientation. So family silver is, in my view, and ownership and so on, these are all unproductive metaphors. The productive metaphor is to think of it like a company, and if you think of it like a company, you think about investment, you think about risk, you think about managing of risk, you think future-oriented metaphors. So, for example, nobody is selling anything, right? But I keep being asked, what do you think about the selling of Hambantota? What do you think about the selling of the oil tanks? Nobody is selling anything. To sell in that conventional sense is, you know, I sell the oil tank, somebody comes and puts it on some, I don't know, some kind of container and takes it away, I suppose. That's selling. We are talking about leasing. We are talking about joint ownership. That's not selling, right? Having something in the jungle
and
that is producing
commercial
no
reasons for
value,
this.
and having somebody spend the money and take the commercial risks to develop what's in the jungle, to clear away the jungle, to repair the tanks, and to create some value out of it, that's not selling. That's entering into a joint venture. That's a different language, different metaphor. So I think the government should be talking in this language, and the media should also get away from their fixation with these old tired metaphors.
Once again, since we are almost out of time and my producer is almost shouting in my ear, with regard to the government and its miscommunication, Narendra Modi is going to be here in the country today, and as you very rightly said, the mechanism there of communicating is far more advanced than what we have here, because the people seem to be knowing exactly what is being done by the government. Am I right in asking you, what can this government do to achieve at least, a bit of what India has with regard to the communication?
Well, my recommendations are as follows. I think I'm not unhappy about the cabinet reshuffle getting postponed. I don't think just changing the ministers will help. I think all ministers should be given performance contracts. They'll have to do certain things by certain number of months, years.
Targets, basically.
Targets. And then for every project, we should have a communication strategy. And there should be somebody responsible for implementing that communication strategy.
That is your recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samarjeeva, for being here with us this morning on Newsline. As usual, it's very interesting talking to you about these matters because of your entertaining way of putting things out. Thank you very much, Doctor, once again. We will be joining you tomorrow as well. I will not be joining you, but Faraz will be joining you tomorrow as well with another interesting guest. We will hopefully see you in the next week. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.